Welcome to the No Budget Indie Filmcast, where we dip into the independent film universe to highlight those little films that you might not have heard about elsewhere. Will you agree with our panel, or will our panel agree with each other? Tune in to find out. My name is Milo Dennison, and with me, as always, are my most excellent co-hosts, Claire Milan.
Hello.
And Cathal Feeney.
Hello.
Okay, Claire, what are we watching this week?
So this week we're watching Mank, and I'm really bad at summarizing films. So do you want to summarize it? Because I know you're a big fan of Orson Welles.
Oh, see, when you said you'd do it, I was like, oh sweet.
Sorry.
I don't have to summarize
make some notes.
Thought you were going to do the summary.
Okay.
That's fine.
So, and I watched it. You can summarize it. Go on.
All right. Well, Mank follows the story. So this is kind of an ongoing Hollywood discussion, debate, whatever, of the writing of Citizen Kane. And it has to do with Herman Mankiewicz, who was the person who wrote it. And then, or obviously, Orson Welles also got co-writing credit for it. And the debate is, of course, how involved was Orson Welles in the writing process? This particular film, starring Gary Oldman as Herman Mankiewicz, takes a pretty strong point of view from that Mank, hence the name of the film, wrote Citizen Kane. And it's shot all in black and white. It's made to look like, I guess I should mention, it's made by David Fincher, or directed by David Fincher.
It's written by his father. Do you know that? It's not
David Fincher's father. Father. Yeah, he wrote it, I think, in the 90s. And Fincher was really determined to make it as a black and white film. And studios at the time were like, no, we're not doing it in black and white. We want color. And he kind of held out, and he's done enough films since then to where they're like, okay, Fincher's kind of a name now, we'll do it. And since he had Netflix do it, who has a little bit more leeway with what they're willing to film. So he was able to make it in black and white. And there are shots in there. If you've seen Citizen Kane, you do recognize there's an influence. It's not, in my opinion, as creative as Citizen Kane was, but you do see occasional shots and framing that are reminiscent of Citizen Kane. He also does things, even though he shot this digitally, he does things with the film where he puts the little burn in the upper right corner that you see from leftover from the days of film when they were changing reels, letting the person displaying the film in the theater know when to change to the next reel. So that's in there, which is kind of, I think, kind of lame because it was just digitally added to create that effect, but some people like it. He also did stuff with the sound to give it kind of that raspy, kind of more recorded on older sound equipment film. So he did a lot of stuff with this film in order to make it have that feel of legitimately being shot in black and white film and to it, which is nice. As to the performance, I mean, Gary Oldman is brilliant. He's always brilliant. There's like, you can't ever say anything negative about Gary Oldman. I do think they take a lot of leeway with the character and the way it's done. They shoot it a little out of time as well, so it jumps around, especially at the beginning, also similar to Citizen Kane. Amanda Seyfried plays the kind of blonde take on, I mean, I can't think of the name of the character.
What's the name of the character?
Marion Davis. So Amanda Seyfried plays Marion Davis, who was the concubine, if you will, of the well-known William Randolph Hearst, and who's played by Charles Dance. And so Mankiewicz kind of befriends them, and that's kind of where he gets the idea for the story of Citizen Kane. And so there's kind of all that story mixed in there, and his conflicts with studios and stuff. So I don't know. How's that for a summary? Does that work?
That's really
on
good.
The fly there.
You're brilliant in summaries. Like I just get all jumbled up and stuff. It's quite interesting because I've never seen Citizen Kane, and so I went to this film because I just heard Mank. People were saying, "Have you seen Mank?" So I sat down. It was just as it came out on my little laptop and watched it, and I was immediately sucked into this world. I think it's 1950s, isn't it? And is it 50s and 60s or 40s and 50s, kind of based in
30s and 40s already.
30s and 40s, even earlier.
Most of it takes place because Citizen Kane came out in 41. So this would have, I hope I'm right on that. Somebody can probably correct me, but if Citizen Kane came out in 41, this would be leading up to that.
So it really like showed the whole Hollywood system and the politics involved, and just I loved the black and white and the feeling of it. It's like you don't really see a modern black and white film. It's kind of like, I suppose The Artist would be another example of it, but I've rarely seen a modern kind of black and white take on an old style. But it works so well. I didn't realize that they put that burning thing in the corner, so I have to go back and watch
yeah, you'll notice it. You'll definitely notice it now.
And even Amanda Seyfried, like just her character and the way she's playing her and her look, and Gary Oldman, he's going to win the Oscar. Like, just give him the Oscar. He is going to win it. He's just terrific in this.
But I think anytime Gary Oldman's in a film, they should just give him.
Just say, there you go. But it really,
did Gary Oldman do a film this year? Oscar.
Well, yes, Oscar, exactly. but it's just, you get sucked into this whole world, and I think it's a fairly longish film. I think. I'm not sure what exactly the playing time is, but it's funny because then during Christmas we actually got a projector. We can project into the wall, and what did I put on again? Mank. And when I was sitting watching it on the big screen in the comforts and safety of my own home, of course, it was wow. It was amazing. It made me, was this in the cinema? I don't know. Was it?
No, it was straight to Netflix.
Okay, that's such a pity, because when I saw it on the big screen on the projector, I was even more engrossed in its world, and I had like a speaker and stuff, and it was wow, like it was brilliant compared to watching it on a laptop, So it's a pity it's not in the cinemas, so people can really take in what this film is. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because I know nothing about Citizen Kane, but I still really enjoyed it. And afterwards, I actually searched for Citizen Kane, and it's not on any of the streaming sites, which is really strange, because I thought it'd be very easy accessible on one of the streaming sites. Even YouTube you can rent or something, but you have to actually buy it, which is really, wow. It's kind of interesting, mad, isn't it? Because you think it'd be easily available, or be available free even at this stage. But yeah, really, really terrific film. There's the script is the acting, the directing. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Actually, I'll say that. I mean, ironically, one of the reasons I enjoyed it was because of the script, and obviously the performance of Gary Oldman. And it sort of touches on a theme that I've argued with people, is that the writers really don't get enough credit for the film. They don't get the same recognition as a director. Now, obviously, it's a visual medium, and the director kind of brings the words to life and creates this palette, but writers are almost forgotten about. And I was reminded of a story that I'd heard before, and I obviously looked it up again. And there was a screenwriter called Robert Risking, who would have worked around the same time as this film was set in. And he would have written a lot of films for Frank Capra. And the story goes, I mean, it could be apocryphal, but that Frank Capra used to boast that he'd put the Frank Capra touch on his screenplay. So this guy supposedly bound together 120 blank pages and went over to Capra, put it on his desk and says, "Put your effing touch on that." But there you go. I mean, I'd be as guilty as the next person, because I unless it's a writer director, I wouldn't know who was a screenwriter.
Yeah, it's very
true. Yeah, I mean, I did like this film. Thinking about black and white, obviously, you kind of it transports you to that era, and probably the reason is because a lot of the old classic films that we would have watched were in black and white, so it just resonance of that time. Which was some great one-liners in it. The one I particularly liked was it's what God would have built if he had the money, which was George Bernard Shaw. but it was quite bitter and a sort of cynical take of the industry in Hollywood, and probably not as much has changed. And I echo the point on Gary Oldman, like he's a great actor. Like he's one of these actors you kind of think, okay, it must be a good film if he's in it, and it probably would. Like, I mean, he's not a sex symbol, so really it comes down to his performance, and his performance is usually excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the writer stuff too, it is interesting because how much they have an impact on that film. I mean, they write it, the story, and we talk about this too sometimes with watching films, and you're like, are actors, and they're like, what interests you? And well, what's the story? Does it have a good story? Or like, did you enjoy it? Did it have a good story? And that's the writer that does that. Mm-hmm. Yet, nobody names any of the writers half the time. We don't know.
Yeah, it's so true. Isn't it? I mean, it's so, we don't give enough credit for writers, because they are the ones that create the story. There's nothing without the writer, so I'm guilty of that as well, because I wouldn't know writers' names unless it's a writer director, so like directors get more recognition than writers. So it's
although ironically for this film, it was the only Oscar got was for best screenplay or best screenplay.
Yeah.
And I was reading up about it, and like one of the reasons was that I think it was probably William Randolph first orchestrated this, but there was block voting against the film, so it didn't actually win any awards, any technical awards, for instance, for a film that's gone on to be regarded as one of the best of all time, and like the innovative sort of shooting techniques and so on. It's a long time since I've seen the film, and I probably didn't appreciate what was going on. So I would like to see it again.
Yeah, and it's funny with Citizen Kane, they talk about, and I can't think of the name of the cinematographer on it, but I could also argue in the same way that Herman Mankiewicz had a lot of an influence on it over Orson Welles. You could also say the cinematographer did, because when Orson Welles made that film, he had never made a film before. He didn't know how to make a film. And so the director of photography would have had a lot of influence on the look of Citizen Kane at the time. And so, I mean, you got to give Welles credit though, because he brought the right people in and he made it work. But same thing with the look. So much of it falls on the cinematographer as well.
I wonder how.
I mean, when I compare it to my first short, you got to give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
How true is the story? Like, because some people debate how much Mankiewicz or Welles, how much was it co-written? Was it? There's kind of debate going around, isn't there?
Yeah, my theory, and this is the thing, because none of us were there, I do think Mankiewicz wrote the first draft, but I think Orson Welles was heavily involved in the rewrite process. And so I think the way they credit it as both, Mankiewicz first and Welles second in the credits, or in Citizen Kane, I think that's fair. Because but who knows?
And actually, the thing about Orson Welles is I was reading up about him again, and there was a story which I'd heard before, and I completely forgotten about it. But he'd come to Ireland in the early 30s, and he blagged his way into becoming an actor with the Gay Theatre by saying he was a Broadway star, and he was cast in a few plays, and he produced some of his own stuff. But what amazed me about it, right? It was 1931, and he was 16 years of age.
Oh wow!
Oh my God! Because I know that story. Yeah. It's a very well-known story about him going to the gate, but I didn't know he was 16. That's incredible.
Yeah, I looked at that. I mean, I said, I wonder how old he was, and it's like born 1905. So, 1915, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, he's. I mean, I think he's fantastic as a director. I mean, even A Touch of Evil, I think, is a fantastic film. That's one of his films as well. But off of Orson Welles and onto this, True to Life. Yeah, I think it was reasonably. I know Mankiewicz in real life was a heavy drinker, and was pretty well known for being quick-witted and snarky when it came to a lot of stuff. He did know you know, Hearst. Sorry, a little brain fart there. So Mankiewicz actually did know Hearst, and he did know Davis. So that part's probably reasonably accurate as well. I just think they take a lot of liberties with who did what and who said what at what time. Because I do feel like he seemed to he walked into like the head of MGM and just talk shit to him and stuff. And this is in the 30s and 40s when writers had even less control than they do now. So I find it hard to believe that they would have let him get away with a lot of that, his behavior. But you never know. I mean, maybe he was such a likable person that they did. Yeah.
There was actually
it's a film
scene in it. With the big dinner party, and they're all dressed up in like circus costumes, and then Mank comes in and I think he's talking about the screenplay, and Hearst is there, and he just goes on for like 10 minutes. It feels like it's so brilliant. Like if you want to look at a monologue of an actor doing a monologue, absolutely like smashing it, is to watch that scene. It's a masterclass. It's it's amazing.
I'd say they did take a lot of artistic license, though. It seems unlikely that he would have behaved like that right to his face.
Yeah, as you said,
that's the thing. I mean, it is a film. It's got to be dramatic. Interesting thing about that scene, though, I did read something about it, and because David Fincher is notorious for taking hundreds of takes of scenes, and apparently that particular scene took forever. Like there was some bits of took 200 takes and stuff, and just exhausted people.
There was so much in it, and maybe the scene he used was towards the end when he was exhausted, because you could see him pushing himself. Like just it works so well. Yeah.
All right, so ratings then. What do you think, guys?
So for me, it's a fabulous film. I can't really fault it, and it's going to win the Oscars, especially for Gary Oldman. So for me, it's a 5-star film.
Well, starting the year. I really enjoyed it. Great performance, great screenplay, and it was very well shot. But I'll give it 4 stars. Because I want to.
Not 4.5.
Leave myself a bit of
Yeah, no halves even. All right. I'm gonna go with you, Cathal. I'm gonna go 4 stars as well. Like it's a great film. I don't know if I appreciate David Fincher's style of making people do 200 takes in order to get a scene right. So I'm going to drop him a star for torturing his actors. And
you don't even know if that's true. I mean, is it true?
It is true.
I read that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's notorious for it in all his films. He'll do hundreds of takes of a single scene just to get it just perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be paid by the take,
Yeah, there you go. Then they screw up purposely. Well, I don't know. I think I messed that one up again. Whoops, forgot that word.
Maybe not then. All right then.
Okay. Well, there you have it. No Budget Filmcast audience. We really enjoy this film. It's available on Netflix. So most people have Netflix, which means you can watch it. You can also let us know what you think by reaching us out to us on our social media channels, which are Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at No Budget Show. And until then, we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.